Good morning. Thank you very much for joining the session today. This session is about bringing creative STEM robotics to Cobb County's early learners. So we're going to be hearing from two Cobb County educators, my guests here today, as they share a little bit about using robotics and the Kibo robot in particular to do a wide range of really fun kind of cross-curricular lessons that teach computer science and STEAM, but also help meet some important like math and ELA goals as well. So just a little bit of kind of housekeeping and welcoming. My name is Jason Ennis. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Training at KinderLab Robotics. We're the makers of the Kibo robot that my guests will be talking about today. And then I'm really pleased to welcome our two guests, Tamika Grizzle. Hello, Tamika. She's an innovation specialist at Mableton Elementary. And then also Leanna Allen. Hi, Leanna. Hello. She's a media specialist, a librarian media specialist at Pickett's Mill. So the flow today, we have about 45 minutes together. I'm going to share a little bit more about KinderLab and the Kibo robot, just so you know the device and curriculum that Tamika and Leanna will be talking about. And then I'll turn it over to my guests where they'll share a lot more about specific activities and lessons that they have implemented with Kibo. We will have the opportunity to do some Q&A at the end too. So within the GoToMeeting interface that you're using here, there's a button or a section to ask a question. If you send those questions in, our marketing director, Christina, who's also on the session, we'll be able to answer, technical questions you might have, but otherwise she'll pass the questions that you have for Tamika and Leanna on to me, and I can ask them the questions during the Q&A section. So we'll spend the last 10 minutes or so today addressing your questions. So before we get started with the slides, we'd actually love to know a little bit about you all who's here with us today. So we're gonna just take like 20 seconds or so to pop up this little poll on your GoToMeeting screen, asking you to share what's your role in early childhood education. Are you a classroom teacher? Are you a library media or tech specialist? Are you with administration? Or maybe you're coming at things from a different angle. So really appreciate you just sharing a little bit about who you are today. And I'll just keep that poll open for another 5 seconds or so to give you a chance to vote, and then we can share that back out. Okay, I'm gonna close that poll and I'll share it back out. So it looks like we have a lot of classroom teachers here. So that's really wonderful. Welcome everyone, of course. But I think classroom teachers here, I think you'll really enjoy hearing from both Tamika and Leanna about ways that you can integrate sort of this fun and not so scary coding education into your classroom experience with your kids. So before we get going with Tamika and Leanna, I'll just spend a couple minutes sharing about KinderLab, the Kibo, and where we're from. So Kibo is the result of a research program at Tufts University up in Boston, where we're based. Through a grant from the National Science Foundation, our co-founder, Dr. Marina Bears, was able to create the company to make the results of her research available to teachers and schools nationwide and around the world. She has done a wide range of research about introducing coding to young children. She and her team developed Scratch Junior, which is a great iPad-based coding app, but she also spent a lot of time focusing on robotics and ways to make coding and STEAM really tangible and concrete for young learners. So Kibo was the other sort of main result of her research program aside from Scratch Junior. So Kibo is a tool to introduce coding and robotics to young children. 4 to 7 years old is sort of the sweet spot that benefits from the kind of concrete learning that Kibo enables. And Kibo is designed to be built, programmed, and decorated by young children. So it involves both the critical thinking, the design skills, as well as an element of imagination play. So you'll see how that works in some of the examples. one of the real sort of innovations of Kibo is the idea of making programming itself kind of tangible. So children use these wooden blocks where each block represents one instruction for the robot to follow. They create their program by attaching these wooden blocks together and then scanning the barcodes on the blocks with a scanner that's built into the robot. This way, the entire experience happens in the physical space of the classroom. There's no iPad, there's no computer, there's no screens at all. Then I mentioned building onto the robot. So where this experience kind of comes together is with the idea that children aren't just sort of creating a program for a robot to follow. They're designing the routines of a fire truck as it navigates the neighborhood, honking its horn, flashing its lights red and white, driving forward to help the town. So this kind of storytelling and imagination play is supported through that kind of arts integration that's such an important part of STEAM, the A in STEAM. And you'll see both Tamika and Liana will share examples of how that kind of storytelling and imagination play is really central to the curriculum with Kibo and also to making these experiences relevant to young kids. So sort of, timely for kind of this moment, one of the things, Tamika's activity is she'll share a bit about a kind of math connected activity that she did with Kibo, and Liana will be talking also a bit about kind of ELA standards, storytelling, and how Kibo connects with reading. So these ideas of supporting math and ELA, of course, at this time when we're really thinking about what are we going to do to like re-engage children, help support them as they recover whatever ground they may have lost due to all the challenges of this school year, it's important to remember that these kinds of integrated STEAM experiences aren't just about coding. They're not even just about sort of science and technology. They can also give children tools to explore all sorts of other curricular areas that we're working with them in. So I'd like to just sort of keep that and ask you to keep that in mind, that working together in collaborative groups, creative technology experiences, these are ways to support all of our goals in the classroom, not just our STEM goals. So with that, I'll definitely now turn it over to my wonderful guests. So first we have Tamika. Tamika Grizzle, she's a STEM innovation and professional learning specialist at Mableton, and she's used Kibo in the context of kind of a math after school club, and she's also been looking at ways to integrate Kibo into STEM education there more broadly. So I'll turn it over to you, Tamika.
Thank you. All right, so let's begin with the first slide. All right, so this came about when, my principal and the coaching team were thinking about ways to, make up that learning loss that happened after the COVID-19 hit. And so I thought of, holding a K2 coding and robotics club with an emphasis in mathematics. Now, we have never had usage with robotics with the younger kids with Kibo or an after school club. So that was my area of specialty. And, we said we're going to make this work. I started the club. It's 3 days a week where I see kindergarten one day, first and second on different days. And we work together for 1 hour. Next slide. So with the Kibo package, it comes with a poster. So again, this is the first time they've ever seen it. So we went over the parts of Kibo, how to use Kibo. I refer to all my robots as females because, as you know, minorities and women are underrepresented in computer science and the STEM field. So I wanted our girls to look at themselves as a computer scientist, as somebody who can work in those fields and not just the boys. So I talk about the delicacy of the robot, how to handle it, and then this kind of gets them excited into, okay, great, now let's get our hands on this robot. Next slide. Also in the package, you will get an engineering design process poster, and this is what I use when we engage in our activities. We don't just, in the beginning, yes, we play and get used to the blocks and how they work, but then we really focus on the EDP process where they are given a challenge and they have to go through the process of asking, okay, what am I being asked to do? How can I do this challenge? How can I make it work? And then we present our work. And the test and improve is the most time spent in this process, because they are new, they're babies, but in the end they love it. All right, next slide. So these are my kindergartners. So they had a challenge where they had to, create a program, but they just couldn't just put the blocks together. So as you can see, they had to plan the stages. So on their whiteboards, I give them whiteboards and dry erase markers. And of course, they're not, they can't really write or, write a complete sentence. So I tell them to draw a picture. So on the left, you see one of my club members drawing a picture of Kibo, and underneath she's drawn the blocks that she wants to put in a sequence in order to perform this challenge. And on the right, it's the same thing. She chose just to make a picture of the blocks with the little photos on each block to create her sequence. On the next slide is just a close-up of their work. So again, we are playing, we're having fun, but I do want to develop those computational and critical thinking skills and let them know, as computer scientists, this is what we do. We work through a plan, we work through the mistakes, and we fix those errors if they arrive. Next slide. Oh, this was my favorite. Okay, so we only have an hour each, club session. And these are I think these are first graders. And so I gave them a word problem, and they had to use manipulative to demonstrate the answer to the word problem. Then they had to go back and code Kibo to the answer and do like an action where it's either spinning, sound, or lights to light up to say, okay, this is my answer. This is what I've got. But the reason why the coding part took so long is because, again, those computational skills. There's only one move forward block with Kibo. So they had to figure out how many times do I have to scan this forward block to get to the answer. And I didn't tell them at all what they had to do. I like for them to have that struggle time to develop those critical thinking skills. So yes, they were frustrated. Yes, they got a little upset. And I was like, it's okay, keep working. I said, you got to move forward. How many times? But it's like, I scanned it, but it's not going far enough. I said, well, what do you think you need to do? And so eventually, after, trying and going through that, iterative stage in the EDP process, they realized they had to scan that forward block several times to get to the answer. And then the next part was, how do I turn left? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? And how do I go back and scan those blocks in the correct sequence? So even though Kibo is a playful toy, it is teaching them, struggle time, critical thinking skills, computational skills, and they really enjoy in the end when they get. All right, next slide. So these are the blocks, the code that they put together in the sequence. Again, it did take them at least 45 minutes to get the blocks to scan it correctly. Even though it looks very simple, it really wasn't for them. And I try not to get too involved in telling them. I'm more like scaffolding. I'm more the guy on the side. So eventually, when we move to harder sequencing and harder coding activities, I can, watch and just help and assist if they need it. All right, next slide. All right, this one, this is where they have to verbalize what their codes will do, because sometimes, they'll put codes together and not know what the outcome will be. So they have to understand that, you're a computer scientist. When you put these codes together, you're telling your robots what to do. So when you put this together, they're going to execute what you want them to do. So when they tell me out loud, okay, this block is going to make them go forward, turn left. And then when they scan the code and it lines up, then I know as their teacher that they are understanding how the blocks works. And they are using those critical thinking skills to put the blocks together and not just, playfully, putting anything together and watching their robots do a fun, activity or fun dance or fun movement. The purpose is to get them to think critically and to know how to code purposely. Right, next slide. Oh yeah, so Ken, this is during, COVID-19, normally I would have a lot more students. I have 5 Kibos, so I would have been like 10 students in the club. But because of social distancing and the virus, we had to spread out. So I had about 5 students in my sessions. Now that restrictions are being lifted a little bit more, I feel like I can have a lot more students and maybe just wipe down the equipment in between each usage. So it is possible to have a coding and robotics club during these times. I stayed away from any club that used a device. So Kibo, the great thing about it is screen free. They didn't need an iPad. All they needed was their robot and their blocks. So they didn't have to share a device. All right, next. Oh, and then because this was their first time in a coding and robotics club, we celebrated. I gave them certificates and little treats, and they were so happy. And I ended the club after 20 days because in my mind, it was out of our 20-day funds. We were a Title I school. And so my principal kept asking, are you finished? I'm like, yeah. And they kept asking at different times. I said, well, it's only 20 days. And so they're like, no, Tamika, 20 days is just a title. You can do more days. And so the parents were like really excited when I told them we're going to continue the program. And so we have moved into the second phase of the Coding and Robotics Club, and it's a more advanced club that I have going on now. All right, next slide. All right, so this is my crew. So these are my kindergartners, first and second graders. So again, like I told you, the next steps, we are in the advanced K2 Coding and Robotics Club. Now we're learning about sensors, conditional statements, and the repeat until. So instead of them scanning that one block 5 times, now they're going to use that repeat block to put a number on that block, use the repeat until, and they can see side by side how you can have different codes that work for the same purpose of a challenge. And the last slide. Oh, and that was my last slide. So there you go.
Thank you so much, Tamika. I loved your observation about the children engage with something like this in a playful way, and that playful learning is such an important part for this age group. But by asking them to draw those sort of planning diagrams that you had with the little picture of the robot and the pictures of their blocks, getting them to verbalize what they're expecting a robot to do, those are, I think, really powerful techniques for encouraging that, like you said, that critical thinking and helping to guide the experience to be something even more engaging with that engineering design process, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
It's nice to be able to support both that playful learning, but also that sort of prompting to, do a little planning, do a little reflecting. That's so important to that process.
Yes.
So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
All right, so we've got, next up, we will hear from Leanna Allen. Leanna is at Pickett's Mill, and she's a library media specialist. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Leanna.
Just one thing, there's a slight mistake on there. It says Tamika Grizzle. It's Leanna, not me. Library.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I didn't want the audience to be confused.
I'm so sorry. Sorry
Not a
about
problem.
that to both of you.
My name's on there like 2 more times. They can figure it out. They're smart people. Good morning, everybody. Coming at you live from the library, which I believe is the best place in the entire school. I gotta be honest, Tamika, it's so cool, like listening to what you do and thinking about what I do and how we have the same skills and we tackle them differently. So you were talking about how your kids draw on whiteboards. I was like, that's genius. And then I took photos of the blocks and then printed these on cardstock. So I actually give these out to kids and let them use the code this way. And then when they get the actual blocks, it's kind of a smooth transition. So I thought that was just so interesting how we both have similar problems. Like I'll give them 6 of those forward papers. And then when they get the blocks, they're like, I only have 1. I'm like, see if you can figure it out. I don't know. That's weird. No, there's only 1 in there. So anyway, I am in the library, like I said, and obviously one of the things that I'm in charge of is promoting literacy at my school. I read to kids all day, every day. And what I'm going to be focusing on talking with you today is pretty much first grade. And this that what you're looking at is Noun Town. This is an invention of my own creation. And the classroom content teachers, the STEM teacher, and myself all kind of collaborated to create this sort of, I want to say it was like 3 weeks of a unit that we kind of put together. And it all kicked off with them coming to me in November, and I read Balloons Over Broadway, which is a nonfiction book about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and how the balloons and the floats were created and the origin of just all of that. And the kids just love it because it's interesting, and they don't know about all that kind of stuff. They love learning new things. And then they leave me and then they go to the STEM lab. And with the STEM teacher, she talks about balloons and the floats and she kind of revisited the story and how they created the balloons and the failures that they had. And then they, as a group, at their STEM tables, they go through the engineering design process, and they design and they create whatever sort of parade float that they came up with. And we had everything from cows with black spots to, my favorite one is actually in the bottom right there. That's the Flash. And those are first graders, and they made that all on their own. I was so surprised. We usually have a lot of Pokemon. They use markers and they draw on the balloons, and this Flash had paper and tape and all kinds of things to make him look so fabulous. Well, then after that, they come back to the library and we code. We talk about Kibo and we learn the coding, and we talk about making them go in a square. And I actually have them use those papers, and they glue the code on a sentence strip. So each group has the code for Kibo that they need. It's like, I think it was 6 feet. We measure the road, like downtown, people Avenue is like 6 feet long. So Kibo will drive forward 1 foot for every time you scan. So we had to repeat 6 times and then turn which direction, all that kind of stuff. So they practice the code. And while all of that's going on in the classrooms, the classroom teachers are teaching about nouns. They're teaching what a person, place, and thing are. And then the kids are creating in their centers a noun of their choosing, either a person, a place, or a thing. And they have various materials. They built, I think in the top right, you can see Pickett's Mill. That's my school that somebody built, and that's a police station next to it. And so they used toilet paper rolls and printed out pictures of faces of famous people. And then when it was their turn to come to the library, they brought all of their nouns. And my parapro made these streets for me out of butcher paper. And this is one little first grade class, and they had their Kibo. They had to attach their balloon to their Kibo and had to program him. And then we literally we hit the button and it goes through a little parade route. And I cannot tell you how excited they were. We probably did it 3 or 4 times. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. I want to be the first one in line. And it was just so engaging. And that when students are engaged, there's no behavior problems and they're learning. And this was actually in 2019, pre-COVID. Obviously, there's no masks and we're sitting really close together. And working in groups and all those things. We weren't able to do it this year because there is no group work right now, and common supplies and sharing materials. And actually, visits to the library have been significantly reduced this year just for common spaces. And it's just been a bit of a challenge. But this was a really cool way for me to take a robot that I was able to purchase with library funds to house in the library for checkout or use in the library, to collaborate with the first grade team and the STEM lab teacher and bring it all together for one kind of great big literacy, language arts, coding robotics celebration. So if you want to go to the next slide, I think we have a video. And it's from my iPhone, so I apologize that it's tiny.
Okay, I'll start it now, Leanna. Here we go.
Thank you for assisting. Ethan, help him out. Oh, he's doing great. Nudge him, Ethan.
No, it's gonna turn. Wait. Oh, it's
We learned in this that Kibo doesn't necessarily drive 100% straight and make exactly 90% 90-degree turns, but it didn't matter. That they just would nudge it back on the path, and they would go around. And so that's kind of Noun Town. We're looking forward to doing it again. hopefully as soon as social distancing protocols have been released, and bringing it back because it was just so much fun. But before November is October. And this is kind of where I really begin to introduce to first grade the idea of code. And, you know, we read this book, There Wasn't a Lady Who Swallowed Some Leaves, and then I bring out my robot and they're like, ooh, and I'm like, I'm going to tell him what to do. And I'm like, hey, Kibo, drive over there. And then he doesn't do anything. And I'm like, oh, I don't think he speaks English. I'm like, let's see if we can figure out what language he does speak. And I'm like, look inside this box. What language do you think he speaks? And they always will say barcodes, because in the library, they're super familiar with scanning barcodes and self-checkout. And I'm like, yeah, I see barcodes too. And let's see if we can figure it out. And they press the buttons and turn the red light on, and they figure it out on their own. So they kind of make the connection that this is the language Kibo needs to speak. And then I kind of use that as a springboard for let's retell this story. And again, I have little cards. I guess that's my go-to. Cardstock printed cards, and the pictures that you see, the leaves, the shirt, the pants, and they it's so cool because I love how differentiated this can be. They will either work in groups to put the leaves down first, and then they'll code Kibo to do something, and he'll drive over there, and then they'll put the card down. So like they're retelling it, like Kibo is kind of leading the way, or they'll put all the cards down in a specific pattern, like zigzag or lightning or square or straight line or whatever, and then they'll try to program him to drive to that exact location. He needs to turn a little bit because look, it's over there. The pants are over there. We need to turn. How do we turn? And it's been really cool for them. It's almost like free play because they're learning and they're experimenting and they're trying, but it's also directed. It's got a little bit like you need to do it in this order, and you have a purpose. We're going to retell the story and work on that skill. So they get really excited. And then towards the end, I always let them go around and look at other people's ideas because like I said, some will do like a lightning bolt, some will do a square, some will do a straight line. And kids don't always think about like, oh, I could have done a lightning bolt. We could have gone zigzag, zigzag. And then at the end of the retelling, they always let them shake because why is shaking the most fun? I don't know. They really love that. So that's I should have started with this because this is what I do to introduce it to first grade, and then we go through Nountown, and after Nountown they are ready to rock and roll. And so then what I do, if you want to go to the next slide, is the makerspace. So I have a makerspace in the library. Sometimes Kibo is available, sometimes it's not, but usually they ask for it if it's not out, and I pretty much always say yes, because if they want to learn and they want to try it, then go for it. But they have two options. They either they can get the whole big box of just basically free play, exploration, and this is after they've kind of been through the training of how to treat Kibo, what to do. We don't force his wheels to turn, and you know, just that he's delicate and expensive. But then they have the choice to free play and take their kit and just kind of make whatever they want to make. I can tell you right now, their favorite is the voice recorder. At Christmas time, we had a group of 3 use all 3, the triangle, the square, and the circle, and they sang Jingle Bells in order at 3 different, so Kibo was like driving around singing Jingle Bells. So it was just, they thought that was awesome. And I did too, because it's just whatever. But I also have directed activities. So I might have a smaller container with Kibo and just the repeat block, and a couple of smaller selections that, and I totally like that fire truck one. I'm stealing that, Jason, that you had at the beginning. Like, how can you make Kibo resemble a fire truck with a siren and flashing red and white lights? And just put that challenge in there and then have them try to build something like that. So I like that one because, again, it's more focused, it's more directed, it gives them less choices and less options to play around with. Because sometimes the whole big bucket can be overwhelming. But I find when kids are motivated, they like to go really, really far. So I've got 6 right now, kind of scaffolded little mini stations. Like, start with number 1. If you can make him do this, then you graduated. Here's number 2. You can make him do this. And you know, I actually even have 3rd graders doing it right now for makerspace in the library. So let's watch this video, Jason, if you don't mind.
Yep, here we go.
Turn left, turn right, spin.
Did it do it?
Yes.
So I totally love what you said, Tamika, about them being able to verbalize, because that's another part of learning, right? Like, you can see it, you can read it, you can think about it, but verbalizing that this is what he's supposed to be doing is a really important step. And I actually put on the bottom of the slide that if you wanted to go to my Instagram and scroll back to October of 2018, I actually have more Kibo videos. I couldn't figure out how to get them to download and save them because they were on Instagram, and once they were on Instagram, they were gone. I mean, I couldn't couldn't get them back, but I have just a couple of like free activities where kids you can just hear their thinking if you wanted to kind of see how I direct them and the prompts that I give them, and just the joy and the celebration when they finally get it. So I put that down there at the bottom. But that's it for me. That's kind of just how I use Kibo in the library with literacy and books and makerspace and free play, and teachers can check out the bins from me. So if you're interested in Kibo at all, I might talk to your media specialist and see if they're interested in starting with just one kit and using it, and y'all can collaborate that way. But there's so many ways that you can use Kibo in the classroom with content, and that's kind of where I find the power. I wish that I could do an after school club like Tamika. That sounds amazing. But everything that I do during the school day, I really try hard to tie it to content so that teachers find it meaningful, a meaningful use of instructional time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, speaking of meaningful use of instructional time, I love the description of the kind of collaboration that went into creating the Nountown unit, that you were able to involve sort of the science of helium balloons, the literacy of reading the book, and then that creative element of sort of enacting like the kids' own version of the parade. And that's such a great model for kind of a project-based STEM unit. So thanks for sharing that. So we'll open it up to questions now. So just as a reminder, you can send questions in to, using the questions feature in the GoToMeeting interface. Before we get to the questions though, I just wanted to quickly, Tamika, I know Leanna had a chance kind of to react to your activities because she went second. I just wanted to give you an opportunity if you wanted to react, because hearing you know, professionals like both of you kind of collaborate around these ideas is probably one of the greatest things about a webinar like this. So Tamika, if you wanted to share anything in reaction to Leanna's presentation, feel free.
Yes, first of all, Leanna's being very modest. When she did Nountown, it made the local news. I was watching the news one morning and I saw this on, I think it was WTV with Fred Blank. I know it was on the news. I'm like, oh my God, that's a Cobb County teacher. And they talked about town and computer science, so that was really awesome. And I was really smiling and laughing when she spoke about the voice recording. It is fun, but they love to hear themselves, and that's another way for them to explain their thinking, or just do something that they love. Like my kids love to rap, and so they will make up rap songs. If you want to make it more meaningful, they can make a rap about nouns or math, but that voice recording, Leanna, you are so right. They truly, and I do too, love that voice recording. So yes, wonderful things happening in the media center. So I'm going to talk to my media specialist about doing something like that throughout the day. So I think that's awesome.
That's great. Thanks. Yeah, that was a wonderful news story about Nountown on the local news. So one of the questions we have is kind of about looking at using Kibo as we come back to sort of in-person schooling. Both of you mentioned how you know, you would approach Kibo work as kind of small group projects, and that's part of our curriculum as well. The collaboration, the role taking, the trading of ideas, that small group collaboration is actually an explicit part of the Kibo curriculum, and it sounds like both of you have used Kibo that way too. Is that something that you see being able to get back to with the coming school year, getting back to that kind of small group work?
I sure hope so. We haven't really been told a lot about next school year, and I think actually every single school kind of operates in a different way based on administration. I know personally here at Pickett's Mill, we don't do any intermingling. You know, if Jason sits next to Leanna, sits next to Tamika, then that's the way it is at every specials, every lunch. You walk that way in line so that if I get COVID, the people immediately beside me get contact traced and nobody else. So we don't shut down entire classrooms. We just shut down a few kids, like if we need to. And it's been good and bad because there's no, you can't be like, Tamika, go help Jason, because like, oh, I can't go over there. I can't be with him. And it's just different. I'm hopeful that the restrictions will continue to be lifted as time goes on and the vaccine becomes more widespread, but we just don't know for sure.
Yeah, with me, I did have to get permission to start this after school club, but my principal trusted me enough to know that, you know, I will be, you know, be responsible, social distance. But I know the restrictions are lifted some. I'm thinking now instead of 6 feet apart, it's 3 feet apart. And like I also said earlier, I feel like I can get more next year if I intentionally make sure to wipe down the equipment. I mean, it might take longer. The sessions might be a little bit, shorter because of the cleaning in between, but I feel like it can be done. Again, if we're wiping it down, being vigilant of how they're sharing and touching, and again, getting that permission from your administrator, because they're going to be the final say whether, you can implement such a program.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we definitely hope that kids working in small groups collaboratively is something that we can kind of bring back into the school day. And it sounds like you're finding ways to do that with kind of taking turns with materials or encouraging the kids to sort of share their observations about the project. We can sort of keep that even if they're not physically sort of leaning together around one Kibo. How about both of you are, have described projects that kind of in some ways go outside the sort of core kind of experience in the classroom. Do you have advice for classroom teachers who are interested in bringing kind of coding in, maybe as part of like an overall STEM certification, or maybe just because they're interested in it? But do you have any advice for a classroom teacher who may not sort of see themselves as a computer person or a coder, but is interested in these kinds of STEAM activities?
Yeah, definitely. I do not have a computer science background. Everything that I've done, all the robots I've collected, every single, after school club I've implemented was just me learning, and a great way to start is code.org. And Kibo is very simple. As you saw, they're scanning, you have a thought, you want Kibo to do X, Y, Z. How can I look at these blocks and get Kibo to do what I want it to do? So as a teacher, practice, play with it. And that's how I learned. And Kibo does a great job. When you purchase the kit, you go through professional development. So they'll teach you the basics, and there are lesson plans, ready-made lesson plans to go that you can use as a model and then venture off on your own to get more ideas or figuring out ways how to use it in your own classroom. But just don't be afraid. I have a degree in journalism, Master's of Education in Teaching, doctorate in, teacher leadership, nothing with computer science. And I just fell in love with it. And it's been since 2017. Once you see the benefits, once you see the reward, and just knowing that the kids really enjoy it and they're really learning, and you're helping to, get those marginalized groups of students become having careers in STEM fields, you'll learn to love it and enjoy it. So don't be afraid to start and just ask, ask either of us or see what's going on with other teachers and model, play with it yourself and then show your kids.
Yeah, feel free to email me anytime if you have any questions. But the thing that I love the most is that, to me, I teach K-5, so it's very easy for me to think, oh, I could do this with 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. This is a great robot. I could use this. But then I feel like the smaller kids are the ones that get left behind. But Kibo is perfect. It's tangible. It's not difficult. It's easy. There's not multiple. It's just very simplistic. It's like a 1-to-1-to-1. Like you just get the block, you scan it, he does it. Whereas it's like a stepping stone for more complex things later when they're older. But I've not yet had one kid that can't do Kibo. Any range of kid in the entire school, it is possible for them to do it. So hear me say that and believe that you can do Kibo too. It's really, really a simple way to tell a piece of machinery to do exactly what you want it to do, and just kind of do a stepping stone into that coding and robotics. And it gets kids really excited, like, oh, you're bossing that robot around, way to go. Like, you're an engineer. Is that what you're going to do when you grow up? You're going to design robots that are going to boss other people around? And they kind of giggle, but it's just like opening their minds to the fact that this is possible. You can do this. You put them in front of Scratch at age 5 and they're going to be overwhelmed. But you give them a Kibo and they can kind of muddle their way through it and figure it out. And then that's the cool thing is, like, once it clicks, then they just take off and run with it with the rest of the codes and more complex things. So
great. Okay, we had time for one last question. Someone asked about kind of using Kibo with all children. And Tamika, you've talked about the ways that these experiences are so important in setting the foundation for minorities, girls getting interested in STEM careers. how about children with special needs, or have you had experience with using either Kibo or other kind of STEAM experiences with children with special needs? Do you have any advice for teachers who are supporting those kids?
I would love to work with students with special needs. Like, I do not screen kids who want to be in the coding and robotics club. Teachers, I leave it up to the teachers, as they tend to choose students having learning difficulties. But in terms of special needs, that is an area that I would love to venture into. Currently, I do go into the SPED units, and I, deliver science and STEAM lessons, but you're right. I feel like I need to step out and see what they can do. Some of these kids have Down syndrome, nonverbal, different, disabilities. And, that's something I would love to explore more. So maybe that could be our next webinar. But definitely it can work.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
My only experience with our special needs students is when they come into the library for the makerspace. And it's interesting when I'm thinking about it, they almost always choose something extremely tactile, like Legos, or we have these little suction cup blocks that you can build with, and they just really like to touch, and they're colorful and they're bright. But they don't usually choose Kibo. But I'm wondering if it's because they don't understand that it is tactile. So now that you say that, the next time I have that class, which is going to be next week, I'm going to physically put that bucket in front of her and be like, let's try this today and see what we can do, because I know she can do it.
That's great. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, we are coming right up on the end of our 45-minute session. I did want to, before sort of signing off and thanking our presenters and all of you for coming, I did want to share one resource that's available to you. It's a free resource. So you could, even if you don't have Kibo at your school, you could take a look at this and get some ideas about what it might feel like to use Kibo. So this booklet called Maps, Measurement, and Make-Believe, you can download it from the handouts section within GoToWebinar right now, or you can get it from this URL there on our website. But it's 6 or 8 different lessons. Each of them are integrated with a cross-curricular theme. So math, science, literacy, and social studies. And they're all based on the idea, kind of like Liana's Noun Town, of navigating an environment using Kibo's movement commands, and whether that's like exploring a community, or maybe a setting that represents or a space that represents the setting of a story, if it's an ELA integration. So you could have a look at this guide, and it might get your wheels turning about the ways Kibo can support all kinds of educational goals in addition to our STEM and computer science goals. So with that, I'll just share this last slide, which has contact information. Tamika and Liana, both thank you for offering other Cobb teachers to reach out to you to learn more about what you've been doing. So there's your Twitter accounts. I know you mentioned your Instagram as well, Liana, and email. And then if you'd like to learn more about Kibo from us, or talk about bringing Kibo into your school, please feel free to reach out to me.
I know it can be really awkward to try to learn about a tactile robot in a virtual webinar, but if anybody listening out there wants to swing by Pickett's Mill one afternoon after school's over, I'd be more than happy to show you what the kit looks like and let you play with it and press the buttons, and to get you, like, I don't know how far away you are. We're in the top northwest corner of the county up here in Pickett's Mill, but I'd be more than happy to give you a tour of the best room in the school and show you all about it if you really wanted to know more.
Thank you, Liana. That's a great offer, and I bet you'll have people take you up on that. So with that, I'll sign off on behalf of KinderLab, and then also just give our guests an opportunity to say goodbye and thank you as well. So thank you, Tamika and Liana.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody, and we will hope to speak to you again soon. Enjoy the rest of the Innovation Academy. Bye-bye.